In our psalm response today, we sang, "Lord, every nation on earth will adore you." And that's what today's feast is about. The Magi, the wise men, who were not Jewish. They came from the east, following the star, and they came to worship the newborn King. Christ the Savior was now presented to the entire world. But sometimes when we think about this feast of the Epiphany, when we look at the manger scene, our vision can be perhaps a bit too neat and tidy. You think about those wise men, how they left their country behind and went in search of the King. That was an adventure, and they were up to the challenge. In our own Christianity, sometimes it can be for us a little too neat and tidy. I mean, after all, the wise men made a journey of faith. They didn't know exactly where they were going. They didn't know how long the journey was going to take. They didn't know exactly who they were going to find, this newborn King of the Jews. But they made the journey in faith. We live in a rather tidy world, at least sometimes, where people drink decaf coffee and snack on fat-free, sugar-free vanilla yogurt and listen to background music. How does that square with a character like St. Paul, who went out to preach Jesus Christ crucified and risen from the dead, who journeyed, who labored, who was shipwrecked, who was beaten, who was imprisoned, and who died a martyr's death? I look at my own living of the Christian life, and I ask myself, am I living my faith as a guts and glory faith, or rather timidly and orderly and serenely? They marched, those wise men, in faith. We have an expression that we often use when we're saying goodbye to somebody. Take care, take care. And it's a good expression, but it can be, again, rather tame. It can mean, be safe, don't get into anything that might be an adventure. What if we told somebody that was leaving us, go do something challenging. Lay your life on the line for something worthwhile. March in faith. A writer was talking this way. So much of our world, she said, has its ups and downs. In my own life, she said, it's more from side to side. A rather tame approach to life. Not the adventure of ups and downs, but the safety of from side to side. These wise men followed a star. They followed a calling from the Lord, their vocation. They didn't know exactly where it was leading. They didn't know exactly how long it was going to take. They didn't know exactly what they were going to find, but God did. And they were following this calling. I think of that image so often when I stand right here with a bride and groom before me, ready to witness their wedding vows. And I'm thinking inside, do you really know what you're getting into? And they don't. How could they? But they make an act of faith in God and to each other. I take you to be my spouse in the good times, in the bad times, in the sickness, and in the health, and I will love you and honor you all the days of my life. God honors their faith and commitment. And in all of our callings, with the star that each of one of us has been given to follow, it calls for faith and commitment, that the Lord will be with us every step of the way, and the Lord knows where He is leading us. This also tells us, this scene of the Epiphany, they walked by faith and they sought direction. They got to Jerusalem and there was the star, and they thought they had arrived. It was a big city. Where is the newborn King of the Jews? They had to ask. We need to ask direction in our lives too, and so often we're reluctant to do so. You know, driving, and it must be up around the next corner. It's got to be. It'll certainly be the next interchange. Sometimes it is. A lot of times it's not. We don't want to stop and ask somebody. The wise men did. And they eventually were invited to King Herod's court. And he had taken consultation as well. Where is this newborn king to be born? Oh, it's Bethlehem, he was told. So he told the Magi, it's in Bethlehem, and when you get there, come back and let me know where the newborn king is so I can go and offer him worship too. That sly old fox. Isn't it odd that the very one that gave the Magi directions as to where to find the newborn king was the very same King Herod who ordered the slaughter of the holy innocents, trying to kill this newborn king? In our own living of the Christian life, we need direction from God and from His church. Sometimes we're reluctant to seek that direction because we're afraid of the response we might get. We might have to make a change in our lives that we really don't want to make. But we need sound direction not only for ourselves, but also so that we can pass on sound direction to people that depend upon us. Walking in faith with sure direction. And thirdly, those Magi, those wise men, did not march in fear. They walked in faith. Fear can be a very strong power. Fear can keep us from doing what is right because we don't want to appear different from anybody else. Fear can keep us from stepping out in faith because we're embarrassed. Fear can keep us from speaking the truth because we don't want to endure the consequences. But they walked not in fear, those Magi. They walked in faith. On Tuesday of this week, January the 6th, a new Congress will take oaths of office and begin working right away on legislative matters. 2 weeks from Tuesday, on January the 20th, our new president will be sworn into office. We know already from campaign speeches that the freedom of choice